I got another story time too. We got the story of Madara Uchiha, as told by Darius the Green Angel. Now, a long, long time ago, in the land of Naruto, in the Warring States period, there was a boy that was born. His name was Madara Uchiha. He had brothers. They were Uchiha members. They were members of the Uchiha clan, descendants of Indra's lineage. Indra was the oldest son of the Sage of the Six Paths. He had ocular prowess and great ninjutsu abilities. His descendants inherited his ocular abilities. And the Sharingan. Oh shit. I love the Uchiha. That's why I did that. And Madara's brothers all died, you know, during this time called the Warring States period. He only had one brother left. One day, as he's strolling through the woods, just to like get away and like calm the fuck down before going to battle again against probably the Senju clan or another clan that's allied with them, he meets another boy. His name was Hashirama Senju, but they didn't know each other's names. They just met. That's another boy around my age, and he seems cool. He cries a lot, but whatever. I can see better than he can. Like, I can see further than he can. And like, they challenge each other to like different things, and then they grew like close to each other. Every time, like, there would be a part of the day that they would meet at the river and hang out. And they like one day, it was Hashirama who was like, I want to stop this shit from happening because like my brother just died, and like that's why I'm sad. And he's like, damn. And that's what Madara told him. I had a lot of brothers too that died, but I still have one left, and I'll make sure that he don't die. Like, I'll make sure that he don't die. And then he's like, yeah, me too now. And he's like, one day we need to make it so like young children like us don't have to fight in battles and shit, and we can like make a village, and we can have people voted into like leadership, and people can go to school to become ninjas, or they can do other things. We can like basically get the clans to come together under like one flag or one um, village. And back in those times, since it was the Warring States period, it was like an idea. You know, they weren't having it. Like the people, the adults of that time were not having it. Madara's father wasn't having it, and fucking Hashirama's father was not fucking having it. They've always fought against one another. That's what it's always going to be. And it was kind of like that curse, placed on two clans. Since way back in the like day with the Sage of Six Paths and his two sons. So now Madara, and being the reincarnate of Indra, and then Hashirama being the reincarnate of Ashura, they ended up fighting each other continuously, even after their fathers passed on and other shit. So they kept, running that fate. Now Madara was, definitely had the upper hand. Like it seemed like, and this is just me, and I know, Hashirama fans will say the opposite, but they're basically evenly matched, and no clear winner because they would fight all day and then they'd just be like, we have to dip out, because like we're running out of chakra, that type of deal. And like I'm saying, Madara had the advantage because he had ocular prowess and he had fire style jutsu. He can burn that shit the fuck down, you know. Hashirama was getting stronger from, because like he already had great stamina and physical strength, but from a ninjutsu standpoint and then ocular jutsu standpoint, he had to like, he basically pushed Hashirama to become a better shinobi, the like person he ultimately ended up becoming. It was because of Madara. They had that rivalry, right? That they still were friends deep down. Unfortunately, things didn't work out though. So what do I mean by this? One day they were fighting, and the younger brothers were fighting each other. That's Tobirama and Izuna Uchiha. But hold on, before this, I almost missed the important part about Madara Uchiha. He's kind of like the father of like the Uchiha clan in like you know the Uchiha that like ran the Hidden Leaf Village or were a part of the Hidden Leaf Village. Um, like moving forward because he created the Mangekyo Sharingan, awakened it. How did he awaken it? He awakened it by killing his closest friend, and his brother did too. Then other people in the clan, started to gain this power, but it was like kind of a curse. We would kill our own clans, people in our clan, to like obtain this fucking power. The trade-off worth it or not, and they found out after some time, but it took some time, and they were fighting against the Senju clan. They needed the extra power and shit. But I think it kind of backfired on them looking back. Like as I'm saying this shit, it kind of like made sense why they lost. But Izuna ended up dying. What happened then was Madara learned about, or also knew about. He knew what the side effects were by this point. Overuses of the Mangekyo Sharingan leads to blindness. He's seen other people in the fucking clan, going blind. And he didn't want that to happen for himself. His brother was already dead at death's door, so he took his brother's eyes and he attained the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. So now he could use all the techniques he had. What his Mangekyo Sharingan was allowed him to do was slow down time and shit. I don't know. Some people know this, some people don't. He could slow shit down in real time. So like, say a ninja's really fast or whatever physically, he can like slow that shit down. So like he can then intercept attacks and shit. That's kind of a great move. You know, it's not too fast for him to counter anybody's moves. That's why he was a fucking threat back in those days. People feared his fucking name. Because of this power. Now he was enraged and hateful towards the Senju clan that only made his Mangekyo powers grow, and it grew. But like I said, and I'm just being honest, and I like the Uchihas, but it's like kind of fucked up, it's sad. These people were like, damn, we can't fight with you against these people. We're losing people because of what we're doing. We're killing our own people to do this on the side. Certain ones, not all of them, not all the Uchihas were doing shit like that. But they were like, we don't want to do this shit no more. We'll defect to their side, and not fight you, but like we should just give up type shit. And then Madara was just like, I can't, I have to keep going. And Hashirama was like, give up, and then he ended up being defeated. He was like, yo, I will think about this thing that you keep talking about, creating this village or whatever, like we, planned to when we were kids, but you're gonna have to kill your brother or kill yourself right now to prove that you mean or stand by what you mean. I've suffered loss that you have no idea about. I'm like the only one left, type shit. And he's like, um, damn, I guess I'll have to kill myself because I'm not killing my brother. And he saw him and he was like, okay, man, let's just do this thing. And they ended up coming together and creating the Hidden Leaf Village. Now, Hashirama became the, Okage since it was his idea to create the village. But then the one who named the village was actually Madara. He named it the village hidden in the leaves. So after he named the village, he was talking to Hashirama and seeing people and other things, but he was like, moving forward, how should this shit run? I can't allow the Senju to like hold power like forever in this fucking village. And unfortunately that ended up happening. And people can't, dance around that. It's exactly what happened. It is what happened. It just so happens that actually happened. What I'm saying here is the Senju had power in the Hidden Leaf. So like every time the Hokage came up, you know, each Hokage is connected to the Senju clan either by blood or by, being trained by a Senju. Never would an Uchiha take, the reins of the Hidden Leaf Village, and like Madara knew this shit. Like he could like see into the future almost. He read the stone tablet that was manipulated by Black Zetsu, and he found out about a way to, create a, world, through acts of, harnessing the power of the Ten Tails, infinite Tsukuyomi. But he needed to plan things out and other things. He needed other people, it would take time and energy. Um, he saw that, Togeron would become the second Hokage, because that's just how it's probably going to be. And he left the village, people kind of shunned him and were like, we don't want to fight no more, man. Let's just not do this shit. I know we were supposed to be our leader and shit, but man, we can't do this. And he just was like, okay, fine. And then he grabbed the Nine Tails. He commanded the Nine Tails with his Mangekyo Sharingan against Hashirama Senju. They fought in Final Valley, as history wrote it, and that's the truth. Hashirama won at the Final Valley, but the reality was Madara won. you know, and I mean this, okay? So he fought Madara, and Madara was able to get back the Nine Tails from, or Hashirama was able to get back the Nine Tails from Madara. Um, and then they fought each other, and then he ended up dying, but it was a fake death. He actually retreated to underground, and he started performing, looking into the Hashirama cells and the Zetsu bodies in the old tree that Kaguya used to run. And he found Zetsu, and then like they ended up working together. Zetsu kind of helped him out. Um, but he was able to prolong his life. You know, he retreated underground, right? Now, years later and shit, he was cracked out and old. Nobody knew he was still alive. Obito was found by Madara and saved by him, and he said, "Yeah, man, uh, I'm old, cracked out, but I am the Madara Uchiha that you hear about in your storybooks." And he's like, "Damn, I don't want to be here," and other things. That's Obito. And Madara's like, "No, you will do what I need you to, because guess what? This world's all fucked up, and you'll find out. I can make things better. I can, turn everybody. I can make this world, peaceful, truly. But you'll have to follow me." And he's like, "Nah, nah, nah, I won't do that, because I gotta get back to Kakashi and Rin, because he was a ninja of the Hidden Leaf, and he had the goals of becoming a Hokage." Oh, Madara, did what he had to do. He sent Obito out late and other things, and then he witnessed Kakashi kill Rin. That sent Obito into a rage and other things, and then Madara had a loyal, subordinate in Obito to carry on his work after he died. Now, Madara had already made other moves too. He had implanted his own eyeballs inside of Nagato. I don't know if people caught that or not, but those eyes that Nagato had were Madara's eyes. He needed to put them inside of somebody who was cool. He knew about Mito Uzumaki and the relationship of Hashirama, and he knew that they had great chakra reserves. You know, reserves of chakra. So then he put the eyes in him, and then before he died, and then he told Obito to find him and shit. Now Madara died, but then he came back to life, not the way he wanted to though. He came back and he was like, "Wait, what's going on? This is not how I needed to be brought back to life. I needed to be brought back fully. I'm in Edo Tensei form. This is not cool. That means somebody can fuck around and play games with my body." And Kabuto was like, "Yeah, well, I kind of did modify your body a little bit. Grafted Hashirama cells onto you, and you're like basically, more powerful than you were in your prime." And he's like, "What? You don't know how I was." So then, one of the biggest fluxes in anime ended up happening: Madara versus the Allied Shinobi forces, and he ended up handling like most of them. You know, he found out that the nine tails and the eight tails were still not caught, and that he was gonna have to help Obito out, and he was basically like on a fucking mission. You know, dead man, the ghost of the Uchiha, is on a mission to like make his dreams a reality, or I mean, that's what Infinite Tsukuyomi does essentially. Um, in a like genjutsu type of way, it's an illusion, but it like seems like it's real. But he did that, right? He ran that shit with the Allied Shinobi forces. And he, was doing that. Now the five Kage were like, we need to intervene now because guess what? Even Onoki, the fence sitter, knows because he's seeing it in real time because he was the one holding down one of Madara's meteorites and shit, and he knew about Madara from back in the day because he fought against him back when he was young. And he was like, no, this is the real Madara. That guy with the mask is not. And then they were like, okay, the Raikage, Tsunade, the Mizukage, Gara, and Onoki, all of them were standing in front of Madara, and they were like, we'll fight you, as allied ninjas and shit, and he was like, okay, you children can, think you can beat me and other things, but I'll test you too, because you are Kages and shit, right? So he turned a 1v5 into a 25v5. So each Kage had to fight against one of his clones, or five of his clones, my bad. Each one of them had to fight against five clones. He was able to defeat the five Kage, Madara, by himself, no help. And he was also able to fend off the, well, with the cast of the Edo Tensei, or the reanimation jutsu, defeated, that means everybody goes back to the afterlife. Deidara, Sasori, everybody that was brought back. Even Itachi after he forced Kabuto to release the Edo Tensei. But what happened was Madara knew a loophole because this Madara, he knows like the ins and outs of jutsu as well. He's not not foolish in that regard. So he was able to, stay as a zombie in that world without the, person controlling him. So then he was fighting Naruto and Kakashi on the other battlefield because he went over there to help Obito out. And Obito ended up, starting shit early. He became the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, but Madara was not sweating because he knew that Obito couldn't handle that shit. Um, he, um, oh fuck, he he was fighting against Hashirama again. He was like, oh my gosh, this brings me back to the good old days, that type of thing. And they were fighting each other. And this time he had Hashirama's like jutsu too. Like he had Hashirama's wood jutsu as well. Fighting him with his own jutsu. So at this point in time, Madara was more powerful than Hashirama. He then also, was brought back to life fully, with Rene rebirth. And that was through means of Obito being controlled by Black Zetsu. Forced him to do that. Now then, Madara was alive again, and he rounded up all nine-tailed beasts. He did that with, like, basically no eyes and shit, I think. He still had no eyes when he fucking did that. And then he proceeded to kill Sasuke and defeat Tobirama as well. And Hashirama, they were both, he defeated everyone. He made everyone look foolish. Then he became the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. He was running shit with Mike Guy in 8th gate form. And he was like, I declare you the strongest ninja. Like, and all my days of fighting people, you are the strongest one I fought. Physically, taijutsu, bar none, even better than Hashirama and shit. Yes, And he, was like, but it was like, he's the Ten Tails. He has recoup, he has regen, he has, Truth Seeker orbs. And he was going to kill Mike Guy with the Truth Seeker orbs after he gassed out. Naruto came back and saved his life, had his heart beat again. But then, Madara was fighting against Naruto and Sasuke. They had means of fucking sealing this man away. He got away, he actually got away because he had to, pull a quick one on him. They didn't quite understand their powers and shit. Like, really, they didn't. They were getting a hold of it, and they were gonna seal his ass away. But then he bounced out. He was like, "Nigga, I'm out of here," and he just, got away. So when he got away, he went into he stole. Like, God, this guy went like this man was like ridiculous. He should have been the final villain. If Nacho ended that way, I would be all right with it. Some Naruto fans probably wouldn't agree with that take, but the way Madara was moving was ridiculous. He was final villain, material. As far as being a regular human and like, Naruto and Ninja goes, he was that guy and shit. One of the best villains in anime history, So he ended up taking the L, So he used Cast Infinite Tsukuyomi, not understanding that it was Black Zetsu's plan to bring back Kaguya, who's an alien. She's from outer space. This leads into Boruto and other things that, the Green Angel don't really fuck with. Not right now. See, when Two Blue Vortex comes out, I might be, talking about it a little more with like respect and shit. But as of right now, I don't care about it. Um, she, came and kind of stole his thunder a little bit. And he ended up dying and going back to the grave where he belonged. Um, Either way, Madara was a true villain. Some people, sympathize with him a little bit. He, lived through some hard times. He saw where the hidden leaf was going, and like he knew, like somehow he knew that the Uchiha would like get slighted and basically not have any like real power in the Leaf Village, because what ended up happening, man? Hashirama was the first Hokage. Second Hokage did become Tobirama. Then Tobirama gave the reins to Hiruzen, which was one of his students. He wasn't a student of an Uchiha. He even knew Kagame Uchiha, who was an Uchiha, and fought alongside Tobirama, but Tobirama gave it to, Hiruzen. You know, Hiruzen then was the Hokage for a while and shit, and they gave it to Minato. Fugaku was around during those times and shit. He could have been Hokage. That then led to, shit with the Uchiha massacre and other things. Now Madara was, one who, sought power and sought to, be that one that, because he saw it on the tablet and shit, and like he was manipulated himself. He had no idea. That shit was kind of, cracked out. But, that whole thing with Naruto, but, he's still a great villain and other things, man. And I did like him, as a character, villain wise, that good guy needs to fight a villain that's worth, taking down, and he was one of those. But be cool on the corner and let me know what you think about the life of Maru Uchiha, and if I missed anything or not. But be cool on the corner.